Tony D and Little Joan, and this is a screenwriter's rant on Daft State. Man, I had to dig for this movie. About a man who's losing his mind. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. The links are in the description. Comedy horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys, books 1 through 16. Available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. This is the problem with insane characters. I will say again and again and again, if you have an insane character or a character that's losing his sanity, the problem with that writing those characters is you have too much latitude and it undermines the reality of what you're trying to do, and the audience doesn't know what's real. Interestingly, this is from executive producer Mira Sorvino. Remember her? If not, look her up. Anyhow, he is going nuts. He's trying to hold his job. His friends are noticing he's unraveling. He keeps hallucinating, seeing and hearing stuff. He doesn't know what's real. Written by Sam Harder and Chad Bischoff, who also directs. Is he crazy? Is he not? Unfortunately, that's going to be the crux of the whole movie. And I say unfortunately because how can you sustain that for 2 hours or 90 minutes? It's really tough. It's really tough because you really have several movies in play. You have the actual reality of the situation. You have the pseudo realities, which don't matter ultimately. And then you have the following the guy trying to figure out which is which. And every scene with the pseudo reality, once it's revealed, turns out to be worthless. So if he is beset by a demon or a ghost or whatever, and then he eventually confronts it, that's interesting because then there's a real ghost, and then there's an explanation for all the pseudo reality stuff. It was the ghost or the demon or whatever. Whatever, Joan. If there's no demon and no ghost, then you've just been wasting everybody's time in every scene with the demon or ghost. It's really tough to pull off, screenwriters, which is why I say avoid, avoid, avoid it. Yes, you can say, well, but I have all this latitude to do all these crazy scenes. But you can do this crazy scene, but if that's not part of actual reality, once the audience realizes that was all in his head, then ultimately, even if it's not conscious, subconsciously they're going to go, well, that was a big waste of time. That's why you got to stay away from these kinds of screenplays. Now, is this good? It looks okay. Again, I don't know how long I can watch a movie about a guy who essentially has a boring life except when he goes crazy. Because then what you're doing is you're setting up the crazy stuff, which will be the cool stuff. He sees things and he sees monsters and demons or whatever he sees. And then it turns out he's crazy, so none of that stuff's real. So all I'm left is with the boring stuff. The opposite is generally the way you want to go. He thinks he's crazy, but he's beset by some sort of supernatural creature. But then this isn't a movie about a guy going insane. Now, you could combine the two, right? Like in H.P. Lovecraft, you did have guys who would go insane, and you had supernatural monsters from the great beyond. I'm not really seeing that here, so it's kind of tough to parse. He's not particularly interesting outside his delusions. So that's a factor to consider when you write one of these things. You need a guy who's interesting already, and then if he goes insane, well, you're following his real life, which is kind of interesting, and then you're kind of rooting for the guy to go back to the interesting stuff. But if he's actually insane, again, you have to really, really sparingly use the hallucinations or whatever you would call them. If he's not really insane, well then again it kind of just collapses into what we have seen a million times. Ah, see, I wasn't insane. There was a ghost. There was a demon. And now I'm going to destroy it with a magical MacGuffin or whatever. All right, so first act, he's going insane. He's having some problems. He pulls it all together, though, to go to work and give the presentation because he's in business. And so all is going well. But each night he hears things and sees things. Are they real? Are they not? It goes back and forth until the end. You find out they're either real or they're not real. Does he act on the hallucinations and hurt someone or hurt himself? Or does he save his family from actual supernatural beings? You can go back and forth with it, right? So you could go right up to the precipice, right? You can convince the audience with various scenes that, yes, indeed, he is fighting a supernatural creature. And he eventually defeats it, and his life becomes great, and he saves his family. And then in a final scene, it pulls back, and you realize, oh no, he actually killed everybody, and he's insane. Kind of a downer of an ending. It's a surprise, but it's a downer of an ending. The opposite, okay, he confronts the monster is real, he somehow destroys it. Maybe nobody believes him, and then he goes crazy anyway, and he goes into an asylum, and even though he's saved his family, he's crazy. Again, most of these screenplays, super tough to pull off, and not particularly interesting with characters we don't know. If you really, really establish a character, maybe you can pull it off. If you use a historical figure, or if you use an iconic kind of character, right? This guy's just sort of generic businessman. If you made him less generic, maybe you made him, I don't know, the hedge fund manager of some big bank, or I don't know, you made him sort of like the John Hamm character in Mad Men, and he ran an advertising firm. Like, you need more detail to pull off the insanity. Now, that's a lot to ask for in a trailer. It's true. But how much do you care about a character you've never heard of going insane? It's a really tough sell in my view. So, not to knock the movie, it seems perfectly fine. I'm sure it'll have jump cuts and scary moments and strange whispers. But I kind of hate the title, I gotta tell you. Daft State. Feels like a very sort of UK title, right? Daft is crazy, and state is, mental state, I guess you would say. Let's see if there's a write-up here. The mysterious psychological destruction of Easton, who is driven to the edge of sanity, possible self-harm by those that love him most, his wife and daughter. So the only other explanation, if Easton isn't insane, is that his wife and daughter are attempting to drive him insane, which seems very unlikely. Maybe the wife, but definitely not the daughter. So I don't know. I think you could pull off a mental illness in a drama, but a horror movie like this, I just don't have any confidence that they're going to be able to pull out an ending that I'm going to be like, wow. But it looks okay. I probably wouldn't do the theater. Maybe catch it on streaming. But, man, I don't know. About halfway through this movie, I'd be ready to bail if it wasn't really engaging. Anyhow, that's it for me, Tony D, and Little Joan, somewhere in the house. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll be back tomorrow with the Hollywoke Hot Take live stream at 7 p.m. We'll talk about movies. We'll wrap up the end of the year, as we always do, and talk about the box office. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll see you